Tonight, we talk about Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 7, with some amazing music, something stupid. And who does something stupid in the episode? Jimmy? Huell? Everybody, maybe even Kim. Anyway, we will talk about that and some surprises throughout the course of the episode. The Better Call Saul After Show starts right now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Better Call Saul After Show. I'm Christian Bladt, flying solo. It's a big, empty studio, but I'm being accompanied by some great music throughout the course of this episode. And of course, our man Josh in the booth will help us out. He's the DJ spinning the tunes right now. And this song is the title of the episode, Something Stupid. And I was just in the chat before we started. And if you're watching live on YouTube, definitely join us in the chat right now. If you're watching the archive version, go ahead and jump into the chat and we will take a look at what you have to say and get back to it next week. But thanks to everybody who's there in the chat right now. So this song, Something Stupid, was made popular by Frank Sinatra and his daughter, Nancy Sinatra, which their voices are great. It's a little awkward when you sing that song to your daughter. But this version, believe it or not, Nicole Kidman and British singer Robbie Williams. I did have to look that up because I could tell it wasn't Frank and Nancy, but I didn't know what it was. And when we hear that song, it's just this amazing split screen where you can see Jim and Kim, Jimmy though. Jimmy and Kim just really, they are still living together. They're together, but they couldn't be further apart. And it's a nice sort of dramatic effect with the split screen. You know, we see them on the different sides of the screen, even though they're actually in some of those split screens, they're actually sitting right next to each other, but they are completely in their own worlds. And that sequence is so well done by writer Allison Tatlock and director Deborah Chow. I had to look that up too, but I wanted to make sure to give them credit because what is just a great way to start the episode, because we see that there's definitely, it's not even strain on the relationship. It almost seems like it's not a relationship. Let us know if you're watching in the chat what you thought about that sequence. But it serves another purpose too, because it made it clear that time passed. And there's no better way to do some time lapse than with great music and just a little imagery that we see. The months go by. Kim finally gets the cast off. I felt like she'd had it on for years, but really, you know, it just felt that way. Probably felt that way to her too. But anyway, so the cast is gone. That's great. And Jimmy finally finishes up on his PPD. And of course, well, the cell phone business is still in full swing. We wouldn't want that to go away. But he does, you know, this is what he'd been working towards, was to get all that done and just work on getting reinstated as a lawyer. So I think that that's a great way to open the episode. And as we go through, it really takes us, it just takes us through these completely separate storylines that they're both engrossed in. And it's really well represented, not just by that opening sequence, but when Kim and Jimmy are at Kim's office party. And here's a nominee for our recurring feature for Uncomfortable Moment. There are a couple that I would like to pitch out to you, and we'll get to the other one in a little bit. But Jimmy goes into Kim's office. He sizes up her success. He does the little foot count, contrasted with him showing Huell around the office space that he wanted to rent as soon as he got his law license back. And there's a great exchange, too, because Huell's like, yeah, high rise, 40th floor, when I'm not on my boat. So I thought that that was actually really funny. But Jimmy, it just, you see that look in his eyes. It's that thing that he just can't help. He has to go back out there. And he just has to self-sabotage, but also sabotage Kim's relationship with her coworkers. You know, just pitching a bigger and bigger company retreat. You know, Telluride. No, you don't need to go to Aspen. Oh, do I hear a private plane? And I don't know. I found that all to be incredibly entertaining. But let me know, because it's really just me. Not to discount Josh in the booth, but you know.
One evening
yeah. And we do have this song, which also shows the passage of time in another storyline, which we didn't need to really dwell on this storyline, so I'm glad that we jumped ahead for the sake of this. The Iraq Candy Mountain tells us all about the fact that the German demolition team is just day after day. It's just a job, and it's mind-numbing and spirit-crushing, and you have such a fine up-tempo, happy song, and that is not really the lives that they lead. And Mike is there keeping tabs on everybody, but you can see that this German demolition team, they're about to crack, as evidenced by the little skirmish that they have in the tunnels. And they make the point that these guys thought that they were going to have a job for 8 months. It's been much longer than that, and they're maybe half done. So it's pitched that they're going to get a little R&R and head out because they need some fresh air. And I love when, the boss, the German boss, is like, and because you know what a bunch of men need when they're cooped up for almost a year, or if not more than a year. So I found that to be pretty interesting, and we can see they're like about to explode, and Mike pitches the idea of, can we send Kai back? But the boss man says no, because he's the best demolition guy. But we saw last week, Kai, well, he's a little bit of a problem child, and we see it again this week. And he sasses Mike in German, which I thought was entertaining. But I feel like Kai is not long for the world. Let me know what you think. There was a whole conversation in the chat before we even got started. And yeah, Watcher Carter said the big question is, are they going to kill all the Germans making the meth lab? And I had figured Kai for sure. But let me know if you think that everybody's going to die. But you got to kind of figure that they don't want anybody to know where they are. And even though they've kind of kept these guys in the dark, literally, that might be a loose end that needs to be taken care of. It's such a dark and depressing thing to think about. But Gus is a businessman, and he's got to protect his interests. So we could certainly see that happen before the end of the season. And I think it's a guarantee that Kai is gone, but we might see everybody gone as well. But it's fascinating that just to imagine spending all that time, you're working all day, and then when you unwind, you are trapped inside. Even though look, you got a pinball machine. They've got some satellite TV. But remember, this is 2004 at this point. So your options on satellite TV are not what they are now. There's no way that's an HD TV. So that's got to be really just like I said before, spirit crushing, and just the most mundane way to fill your time. So I look forward to, theoretically, they're going to get some R&R next week. My co-host Al, who is on assignment tonight, he is not able to be here. He usually doesn't like to watch the coming attractions for the preview for the next week's episode. Personally, I do, and so I hope that I don't spoil anything. I hope that most of you aren't going to be too upset when I see that we are indeed going to get a better feel for where they all go. I thought that was a nice. It was just sort of a nice way to show us, like, yeah, these guys are working hard, and they might be a little bit rough around the edges, but you have to feel for them, really being stuck in there. We're going to talk about Gus in a moment. By the way, Tim Reno 72, he nails it perfectly. Kai is due for an accident, and he's using air quotes for those of you listening on iTunes. And in any case, I wanted to let you know something very important before we move on. Hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about those pesky notifications, don't be, because they're all optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel. We're on AfterBuzz TV Dramas right now. And check out our other AfterBuzz TV YouTube channel as well. And let us know. You did so in the comments, and we will be sure to thank you on the air. But for now, thanks for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk. This is the only show that I do on the drama, but I have several shows that I do on the superhero, sci-fi, fantasy. I think I nailed all those. That channel, including Marvel TV Weekly. I'm on the Iron Fist After Show. And when Star Trek Discovery comes back, I do a show for that. So I'm all over the place. So you could find me on there. But this drama network has plenty of great shows. So make sure that you subscribe. As Super Curio does agree that Kai is gone, the writers never fail to surprise him. And that's too obvious an outcome. So I'm sorry, I misread that. He doesn't think it's a guarantee. So it could be the reverse. You're absolutely right. Everybody dies except Kai. You know, Kai ends up for some reason becoming Mike's favorite. But I don't know. I think that odds are pretty good that he's not going to be long for the world. And somebody else in the chat, I saw it before, asked, would Gus really kill a bunch of international citizens? I don't think that bothers him at all. You know, where they're from, whether they have passports or social security cards, if he thinks that there's a threat, he will make sure that it gets taken care of. Speaking of Gus, he gets an update on Hector, and I thought that was a very funny scene where we see Hector going through the laborious sort of physical therapy with the nurse, just tapping on the desk to comment on, is this face smiling? I can't imagine what that's like, and it's encouraging. You see the progress that he's going through. Unfortunately, Gus is not at all interested in him actually making progress. He just wanted to make sure that his mind was alive so that he can definitely let him suffer as long as possible, which it's a very Gus move. And of course, he just sweet talks to the doctor. It's like, how's that wing coming along? So it's like, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and let this go. And I can't wait to see how that plays out. And just sort of the look on Gus's face when he rewound the tape to be like, he knocked over that water so he could check out that nurse's ass. I don't know. I thought that was very funny. Robert Kirkendall, back to Gus, having the German workers killed, because as long as they don't know where they are, there's no reason to kill them. Also, killing them would send a bad message to Gus's other employees. I don't know that Gus's other employees are even aware that these guys are involved. Yeah, sure, Mike is. Mike's not worried. Mike's going to be okay. He doesn't worry about it. Obviously, we know how long Mike will be okay for. But in any case, I think that he doesn't look at it that way. And, there's no need to. But sometimes a loose end is a loose end. So it's something that we'll definitely have to watch as the season goes along. Ricky L. Hendricks calculated a 9-month skip from last episode to this one because Jimmy had 10 months left, but this week only had 1 month till the disbarment was up. And so Il Ego said, what was the song playing during the beginning? Because I think he jumped in a little late. That is indeed the title of the episode, Something Stupid. The original is by Frank Sinatra and Nancy Sinatra, but this version, Nicole Kidman and the British singer Robbie Williams. Anyway, so we have a lot more to go through, but I wanted to sort of chronologically take a look at that. And, I referenced before the fact that Jimmy is showing Huell around the law office of the future Saul Goodman office. And just the fact that, one, Huell talks about how he'd be in his boat when he's not in the law office, but just no more cell phones, because clearly he's into that business, Anyway, so what we then jump out to is Jimmy just doing his Jimmy thing, selling the phones, his cash business, when a police officer shows up. And, well, Jimmy's feeling pretty good about himself, and he tells the police officer he's going to have to go, and he basically tells him to screw himself. That's how the police officer takes it. Even though that's not what he says, unfortunately, poor Huell has got the headphones on, really enjoying his music, and he looks like, oh, Jimmy's being hassled. Let me do my job that I'm hired for. Go ahead and hit the cop in the head with a bag full of sandwiches. Unfortunately for Huell and for Jimmy, this is the guy who picked him up 3 years ago for pickpocketing. And by the way, a guy that big doing pickpocketing, God bless him for thinking that he could succeed at that. Usually you figure pickpocket, somebody's going to be pretty fast, in and out. But no, Huell's just like, yeah, I got this. But maybe that's what it is, because he'll knock into you and you can't feel anything because you're seeing stars as soon as he knocks into you. So obviously the cop doesn't want to do any favors for Jimmy. He tried to get him to, why don't you go sell your phones to some soccer moms, which is really some good advice. Jimmy gets a lot of advice in this show, but that's one that he probably could have taken. Life would have been better. He would not have had that headache right there. But Huell is convinced that he's going to have to just skip bail and he's going to have to run and leave town. Jimmy urges him not to do that because that's going to be bad. And of course, what you want to do there is convince him. You're not going to do any jail time. But Jimmy still has that pesky lack of a law degree, or not a degree, but lack of a law license, my apologies. So he talks to Kim, and here's my nominee, my second nominee. The first being Jimmy at the party, trying to sell everybody on the really big, really expensive company retreat. And then the other one is just that moment when Kim looks at him and says, "You've been selling drop phones?" And it's been such an important part of what Jimmy's been doing. And of course he didn't tell her, but just the simple fact that it's like, I really don't know you. And it's very apparent that, just from the beginning of the episode, as we talked about, it's very apparent that they don't know each other and they're just coexisting, and very little warmth between them. And I think that they both do such a good job conveying that. But Kim being Kim, she's going to help him out. And she says, you're going to have to back my play. And that is really the important part, because that she thinks she knows how to do it, but Huell's going to have to, as she said, put on his big boy pants. Jimmy had a plan, and let us know what you think of his plan, which is to get the cop all liquored up and make him lose his cool while he's on the stand. And, Jimmy had done some research. He had a DUI. And, Kim is not going to take down a cop. And that's kind of where they leave it, that she's going to have to go and talk to Huell. And then Jimmy gives her a Jimmy. You do your thing, I'll do mine. And she thinks about it as she's driving. We see her do a U-turn. She starts buying art supplies. And she says, Jimmy, whatever you're doing, don't. I have a better way. What were the art supplies for? What's your plan? These are all things that we're going to have to see next week on Better Call Saul. And here's the crazy thing. This is episode 7. And as the coming attractions for next week pointed out, there are 3 episodes left. We only have episodes 8, 9, and 10. And there's a lot that I think is going to happen in these next few weeks. At the end of our chat last week, our live chat, somebody mentioned something major that's going to happen to a character, and I did not know that it was coming. So, that's the nature of this, and I am not going to give that away. I could use that as a news piece, but I figure we can keep the spoilers really just contained to what's in the episode. I don't think we want to go ahead and tease anything that is coming up. In any case, just looking through the whole thing. And by the way, Jeffrey does point out we saw Huell pickpocket Chuck last season, and that's absolutely right. I still find it hard to believe that he's a pickpocket. Watcher Carter loves Jimmy's plan. And Tim Reno points out, we're going to sort of backtrack to some of the other storylines right now. Tim Reno says if Salamanca is released from the hospital, we might see Tuco soon. Absolutely. Carlos Vega, this season got so dark, I'm loving it. I really have the feeling this season is about to get a whole lot darker over the next couple of weeks. And I don't know how much we're going to love it. I think it's going to be a lot to take in. So it's going to be something to really keep our eyes on. Let's see. Sergio Hernandez, what did you take from Gus's reaction to knowing Salamanca dropped that cup of water on purpose, that he's still the same man? Yeah, I think that's sort of what we were talking about, is that's the moment where he's like, okay, this is what I need. I need to make sure that he's in there, and I want to kind of leave him trapped in there. And the doctor wanted him to be able to walk and talk, that's possible. And he's like, let's temper our expectations. So, Gus definitely runs the show, though. Tim Reno was talking about all the purple leading up to the party. It hinted money or power. That's a Vince Gilligan clue. So it's something to keep an eye on. But in any case, it's obviously there's so much cinematography, there's just so much to look at. And you guys in the chat, you always do a great job of calling to my attention and Al's attention, because he's usually here, about all of those things. So let me give you a quick rundown of what we see people talking about in the chat before we wrap things up here. And, I hope that everybody stuck with me. I have been accused on other shows that I do that I might talk a little too much. I might filibuster my way, especially when we have guests. This is sort of the beauty. It's like I need to talk right now because, we could play some more songs and things like that. But really, it's just me recapping the episode. And I'm so glad there are so many of you watching live right now. Like 3 times more than usually watch some of the shows that I do. So I really appreciate everybody joining in the chat. And Robert Kirkendall, this is a little bit of a spoiler from those who watched the trailers. It does look like Nacho's going to be back next week. And he needed a little time. There's a lot of recovery that needs to go on. Tim Reno points out Kim might be getting statements from previous victims of the cop. That's why the different stationaries. That's a great point, because we do see Kim try to make a deal with the prosecuting attorney, who's representing the police officer. And she had all those cases down where there were other police violence and that this same lawyer had prosecuted, and they all got 5 months suspended or no time at all. And Huell, because he has a record, he was going to get 18 months. So I suspect he's going to probably end up doing a little time. But you know what? If Kim's your lawyer, you might do okay. So it'll be interesting to see. In any case, I want to know for those of you in the chat right now, you just got to pick one of these two things. I think that they're both very uncomfortable moments. Personally, for me, the moment where Jimmy, and he has to tell Kim that he's selling the phones because he has to explain this whole thing. And when Kim looks up at him and says, "You've been selling drop phones?" It's just it's like, as painful as it is to watch the montage at the beginning of the episode, to see them drifting apart. This is just a moment that says it all in 4 minutes fewer than that whole montage. And it's just like, I don't know you anymore. I clearly don't know you anymore. And really, that's the same sentiment from Jimmy, really just going full Jimmy on the boss there at her work, talking about the work retreats. So anyway, you can pick one of those. You can let us know in the archive for those of you that aren't watching live. But everybody who's been watching live, we really appreciate it. I'm always in awe of how many of you. We always have people on the East Coast who are up. It is almost 2 a.m. right now on the East Coast. And when people are like, I need you to get the show started because I'm going to go to bed. They needed our show before they could go to bed. So I appreciate that. Always happy to see that sort of thing. In any case, we will be back next week, both myself and Al. He promises that he will be back. So we will dive into that, and we will have any comments that you might have from this week's episode for those of you that are watching the archive version. I know we kind of blew through it a little bit this week, but this is a great episode. I can't wait to see how the rest of the season unfolds. A little nervous for where it's going because, as you just pointed out in the chat, it's a little dark. In any case, I'm Christian Bladt, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And I mentioned a few of the after shows that I do. I also have a show Tuesday afternoons at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. It's called The Trump Report. We do talk politics. And I have my own personal podcast, The Blattcast. BLADTCAST.com. That's how my name's spelled, Blattcast. In any case, thanks so much to everybody for humoring me while I, again, filibuster the AfterBuzz studios. We will be back next week. Al G will be right by my side. See you then. Thanks, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.